Imagine this. You walk into the frozen food aisle thinking you're making a smart choice. Easy dinners, quick snacks, maybe even something you tell yourself is healthier than takeout. But here's the truth most people don't see. For older adults, and honestly for all of us, that freezer aisle can be a hidden danger. Behind colorful packaging and words like wholesome or made with real ingredients, there are traps, sodium preservatives, unhealthy oils, even hidden bacteria. And while it feels like a shortcut to convenience, sometimes one frozen meal can end up costing you far more than the price on the box. Let's start with number 9 on our list, frozen burritos. You've probably seen them stacked high in the freezer case wrapped in bright paper, promising flavor and satisfaction. You grab one, toss it in the microwave, stab through the foil, and wait for that hot bite. But what usually comes out? A rubbery tortilla, a bland mash of beef and beans, and enough salt to make you feel like you just ate a salted pretzel. The truth is, these burritos aren't engineered for taste or nutrition. They're engineered to last, and to survive those long months in storage. Manufacturers pump them full of sodium starch fillers and chemical preservatives. Now let's talk numbers. One frozen burrito can pack in half or even close to the entire daily sodium limit recommended for a healthy adult. For seniors or anyone managing high blood pressure, that's not just a bad choice, it can be dangerous. Too much salt means water retention, stress on the heart, and possibly an extra day of medication or a dreaded call to the doctor. And that's before you even flip the box to read the ingredient list. Instead of simple, recognizable foods, you see hydrated proteins, modified cornstarch stabilizers, and so-called natural flavors that often hide MSG-like compounds. The meat. It's usually not whole cuts of beef or a sausage, but processed blends loaded with nitrates and nitrites to hold their color. These chemicals have been linked to long-term health issues when consumed often. And there's another problem we don't talk about enough: the temperature risk. Burritos are thick and microwaves heat unevenly. The outside tortilla can feel piping hot while the meat at the center sits lukewarm, especially if it's made with poultry or mixed meats. That's a food safety hazard. For older adults with weaker immune systems, eating underheated meat can mean a much higher risk of foodborne illness. So what can you do? If you still crave burritos, think like a detective. Read those labels closely. Look for low sodium numbers, short ingredient lists, and clear protein sources. Better yet, take an afternoon to make a batch yourself. Use lean beef or beans, season them how you like, wrap them in whole wheat tortillas, and freeze individual portions. That way you control the salt, the protein quality, and you know exactly how it's going to reheat. No mystery, no hidden chemicals, just real food frozen on your own terms. Now moving on to number 8, frozen breaded fish fillets. The box shows a crispy golden coating, maybe even promises wild-caught goodness. But open it up and what you actually get is often more breading than fish. A thick starchy crust, a little shred of processed whitefish, and a product that's designed to stretch weight rather than give you nourishment. Many of the cheaper fillets don't even specify what fish is inside. Instead, they use vague terms like whitefish, or worse, they use processed paste molded to look like a fillet. This isn't just a trick on texture, it's a trick on nutrition. Instead of the omega-3s and clean protein you expect from fish, you get less of both. And here's the kicker. Before these fillets ever make it to your freezer, they're usually pre-fried in cheap vegetable oils high in omega-6 fats. By the time you stick them in your oven or air fryer, you're effectively frying them twice. That second round of heat brings back the crunch, but also increases the amount of oxidized fats, the kind tied to inflammation and long-term health problems. And just like with burritos, sodium makes a strong appearance here too. To make up for the lack of real fish flavor, producers load in salt, artificial flavor enhancers, and other additives. The breading might give you that crunchy bite, but it also hides freshness issues. A real fresh piece of fish has a delicate flavor and smell, but once it's covered in thick batter, you can't tell if the fish inside is old freezer burned or even real. That's not just disappointing, it's risky. Think about the last time you bit into one of these fillets. Did it feel like mostly crunch with a thin line of fish in the middle? That's because many of them are. At the end of the day, you're paying for starch, oil, and additives, not true nourishment. If your goal is heart health or protein, this is the opposite of what you need. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Convenience is tempting, but not all frozen foods are created equal. A burrito that promises warmth can instead deliver a sodium overload and a cold center. A fillet that looks golden on the box can turn out to be a breaded shell game with almost no real fish inside. And while grabbing them might save time, the health costs add up over the months and years. Healthy Hues Wellness is here to remind you the freezer aisle doesn't have to be the enemy. It can be your friend, but only if you know what to look for. And as we count down this list, we'll keep showing you which frozen foods are worth the space in your freezer and which ones are just traps in disguise. Stay with me because what comes next may surprise you even more. A small piece of fresh fish has a delicate texture and a clean aroma. That is how fish should taste. But when the product is breaded and frozen, those natural signals get hidden. The breading covers up freshness masks, freezer burn, and dulls the flavor until you finally bite into it. By then, the truth is revealed. Often it is more batter than fish. Some fillets are nearly 80% coating and only a thin shred of actual seafood. In those cases, you are not buying nourishment, you are buying crunch disguised as protein. Next on the list at number 7 are frozen meat pizzas. At first glance, pizza feels like a safe comfort food. Melted cheese, a slice of crust sauce, maybe a little pepperoni. But the frozen version loads that comfort with processed meats, low-quality cheese, and crusts built for storage instead of flavor. Pepperoni, sausage, and bacon in these pies are typically made from processed blends filled with additives and preservatives like sodium nitrite. Those additives extend shelf life and keep the meat looking red, but research has connected them to health risks when eaten often. The bigger problem lies in saturated fat. Frozen pizzas heavy on meat are dense with saturated fat from cheese and processed meats. One large slice can use up most of your daily allowance, forcing you to watch every other meal just to stay balanced. The calorie trap comes next. Frozen pizzas pack in calories through oils, meats, and cheese. While it may feel like a snack to eat a couple slices, in reality, half a pie can deliver more calories than an entire balanced dinner. For people managing weight or blood sugar, that turns comfort into a setback. Sodium levels climb just as quickly. Sauce, cheese, and meat together drive sodium intake dangerously high. The combination of salt and saturated fat is especially risky for older adults. And then there is the hidden engineering. To prevent crusts from turning soggy, manufacturers add emulsifiers and binders. To keep pepperoni from shrinking or fading, they add stabilizers. These tweaks are invisible on the surface, but they are what make frozen pizza a processed product instead of fresh food. A slice here and there is not the end of the world, but making it a regular habit adds up quietly over time. Now at number 6, frozen pot pies. The image looks inviting, a golden crust, steaming gravy-tender chicken and vegetables. But inside it is more often a sodium bomb wrapped in heavy pastry. These pies are designed to last months in a freezer, and to survive that long, they rely on salt stabilizers and thickeners that hold the filling together. A single pot pie can carry 800 to 1200 milligrams of sodium or even more. That is half or even a full day's recommended limit in one sitting. For anyone with high blood pressure, that is not just unwise, it is dangerous. The gravy that promises comfort is the very place where salt is most concentrated. For people on sodium-restricted diets, one pie can erase a whole day of careful planning. Calories and fats pile on just as quickly. The crust and gravy are heavy with saturated fats. These pies are designed to feel filling, so even without side dishes, you are often eating the calorie equivalent of a full restaurant meal. For people managing weight or blood sugar, that hidden load makes progress even harder. The warm promise of comfort hides a dense mix of fat, salt, and engineered ingredients that satisfy briefly but add long-term strain to the body. Repeat those frozen pot pies a few times a week and the impact on your health plan starts to add up quickly. The problem is not only the sodium and calories, but also the way these pies behave when reheated. Because they are made dense to survive long storage, microwaves and ovens heat them unevenly. The crust often scorches while the center remains cold. That creates two problems. First, a cold center is simply unpleasant to eat. Second, if any part of the filling was not processed properly, an underheated core can carry a real food safety risk. More commonly, the texture is what fails you. The gravy turns gluey, the vegetables lose structure and become papery, and the chicken fibers toughen into stringy strands. For older adults who may already struggle with dental or swallowing difficulties, these changes can make the meal especially hard to get down. The ingredient list tells its own story. Instead of whole simple foods, you often find modified starches, carrageenan, and hydrated proteins. These are added to mimic creaminess or stability, keeping the gravy intact after months in the freezer. While those additives are not immediately harmful in small doses, they push aside real ingredients and disguise how little actual meat content the pie contains. What you are buying is engineered texture, not true homemade cooking. A practical way to protect yourself is to read labels carefully. If the protein is listed vaguely as meat product, or the ingredient list looks like a chemistry test, that is your clue. Better alternatives include single-ingredient frozen entrees or even better homemade mini-pot pies. With lean meat, extra vegetables, and a lighter crust, you get more flavor, less sodium, and a safer reheating experience. One so-called comfort pie can quietly deliver a full day's worth of sodium and calories. That is a cost your heart never agreed to pay. Taking the fifth spot on the list are frozen breakfast sandwiches. On the surface, they look like a quick win. Eggs, cheese, sausage ready in minutes. Protein in the morning and out the door. But peel back the packaging and what you actually have is a health bomb compressed into a rubbery form. These sandwiches are designed to survive industrial freezing and reheating, which means dense textures, concentrated sodium, and heavy preservatives that hold eggs and meat in place long after real freshness has disappeared. The construction of these sandwiches tells you why. To keep them intact through mass production lines, manufacturers use binders and fillers in the meat-stabilized egg mixtures instead of freshly cracked eggs and processed cheeses that are built to melt on cue. That engineering makes them uniform and shelf-stable, but it also strips away natural flavor while adding salt and additives. For older adults especially, who often need softer textures and cleaner foods, the end result is both unpleasant to chew and dangerous to health. The nutrition numbers underline the problem. One sandwich can contain between 700 and 1,000 milligrams of sodium, along with a significant dose of saturated fat from the sausage and cheese. Eating one every day means quickly overshooting recommended limits, raising blood pressure and long-term cardiovascular risk. Add a sugary coffee drink, and what felt like a quick breakfast becomes a double hit of salt, fat, and sugar before the day even begins. Preservatives and engineered egg products play a subtler role too. To keep the eggs looking and tasting passable after freezing, factories rely on stabilized mixes that hold their shape in thawing. These mixes bring along added salt flavor enhancers and stabilizers. Occasional exposure is not devastating, but making it a routine creates a dietary pattern that slowly erodes health. There is a better way. If you enjoy the idea of a hot breakfast sandwich, make a batch yourself at home. Real scrambled eggs, whole grain. English muffins, lean turkey sausage, or even a slice of tomato for moisture. Freeze them individually and reheat in an oven or toaster oven for even heating and better texture. Another smart alternative is to choose refrigerated fresh options from trusted delis that use real eggs. That way you avoid the industrial processing loop altogether. Frozen breakfast sandwiches promise convenience, but what they deliver is salt, fat, and engineered food that trades time saved for long-term health costs. The freezer aisle is full of quick options, but not all of them deserve to start your day. Frozen breakfast sandwiches may promise convenience, but if they also deliver high sodium and poor texture, what you are really trading is your morning health for a quick fix. Choosing smart options or making your own at home is always the better path. Now let's move to number 4 on the list: frozen fried chicken meals. The picture on the box is tempting. Crispy golden pieces, creamy mashed potatoes, a dinner that looks like comfort in a tray. The truth is far less appealing. Most frozen fried chicken is pre-fried at the factory before it is frozen. That first industrial fry locks in oil, often using cheap seed oils. By the time you reheat it at home, whether in the oven or an air fryer, you are re-crisping oil that has already been stressed once. That double frying process raises the levels of oxidized fats compounds linked to inflammation and oxidative stress. These are not just flavor issues, they are direct health concerns. For seniors or anyone keeping an eye on cardiovascular health, these fats are an unnecessary risk. Even when the package lists vegetable oil, the health outcome depends entirely on how that oil was treated during production, and the problems do not stop with fat. Sodium and breading additives pile on. Frozen fried chicken is brined, seasoned, battered, and fried before freezing to preserve appearance and texture. That means more salt, more flavor enhancers, and more chemicals designed to keep the breading crunchy after months in storage. Stabilizers and anti-sogginess agents make the product look appetizing, but what you are really biting into is a concentrated mix of salt, fat, and additives. Reheating creates more trouble. Follow the instructions and place the chicken on a baking sheet, but if the pieces are thick or your oven is crowded, the inside can stay cool while the crust becomes too dark. The product was already cooked before freezing, so it is not usually a pathogen risk, but the heavy, greasy centers are tough on digestion. For older adults especially, that dense texture feels heavy and can upset the stomach. If you absolutely must buy frozen fried chicken, choose fully cooked options with short ingredient lists and oils that are more stable. Olive oil is rare in these products, but it is worth checking. A better approach is to buy plain frozen chicken pieces and bread them yourself at home. This way you control the oil, the salt, and the final texture. A box of factory fried chicken may look crispy, but the hidden cost is often paid by your arteries rather than your wallet. For those who love crunch, homemade breading with a cleaner oil gives you the satisfaction without the long-term damage. Number 3 on the list is frozen French fries. At first glance, fries seem harmless, just potatoes cut and ready for the oven. But most frozen fries have already been par-fried at the factory before freezing. That initial fry locks in cheap oils which then sit inside the fries until you reheat them at home. When you bake or air fry, you are essentially reactivating oil that has already been aged and stressed once before. This raises oxidized fat levels, compounds that taste off and place extra strain on the body compared to fresh oil. Manufacturers also add coatings and chemicals to preserve appearance and crispness. Anti-browning agents, starches, and binders are used to keep fries golden and uniform even after months in a freezer. The trade-off is clear. Instead of real potato nutrition, you are paying for crunch and consistency. These coatings can even mask freezer burn or low-quality potatoes, hiding the truth until it reaches your plate. Sodium is another hidden burden. Pre-seasoned or restaurant-style frozen fries carry heavy amounts of salt to maintain flavor after freezing. For people monitoring blood pressure, a single serving can push sodium intake past safe limits. Add a dipping sauce and a second side, and that simple plate of fries shifts from a snack into a medical risk. On top of that, there is acrylamide, a chemical compound formed when starchy foods are cooked at high heat. Because frozen fries are fried once at the factory and then heated again at home, exposure increases. One serving will not cause immediate harm, but frequent consumption builds a pattern that works against long-term health. Fries may look like the easiest comfort side, but what they often bring with them is a double dose of unhealthy oils, hidden chemicals, and excess sodium. What seems like a small indulgence can quietly become a burden for your health. Par frying and reheating do more than change flavor, they also increase acrylamide formation. One serving of fries will not break your health, but when it becomes a routine, the exposure builds over time. That is not the kind of math you want working against your body. Reheating only adds to the problem. Crowded ovens or air fryers often leave the centers soggy while the outsides turn too dark. Underheated interiors are greasy and unpleasant, while over-darkened exteriors concentrate harmful compounds. For older adults, even a single plate of heavy, greasy fries can feel like a lead weight in the stomach. There are better choices. If you enjoy fries, look for plain frozen potato products with minimal coatings. Or go one step further and buy whole potatoes. Cut them yourself, toss with a light oil and just a pinch of salt, then bake or air fry once. You control the oil, the salt, and the crisp. That simple switch reduces additives and gives you fries that are cleaner, fresher, and easier on your health. If most of the weight of your fries is coating in oil, you are paying for texture, not nourishment. Runner-up at number 2 are frozen pasta dinners. They may look comforting on the box with steaming noodle sauce and a sprinkle of cheese, but the reality is very different. What you often get is a dense slab of refined carbs topped with sauces hiding sugar, sodium, and fillers. To make these meals cheap and stable in the freezer, manufacturers bulk the sauces with starches, textured vegetable proteins, and concentrated flavorings. That keeps costs low but calories high. The portions themselves are deceptively heavy. A single frozen pasta entree can carry anywhere from 400 to 800 calories depending on size and toppings. Add bread or drink or dessert and the meal easily surpasses what your body needs in one sitting. Worse, the pasta is usually made with refined flour low in fiber, which spikes blood sugar quickly and leaves you hungry again not long after. For seniors, managing diabetes or weight that spike and crash cycle is especially dangerous. The sauces carry their own risks. Frozen and jarred pasta sauces often rely on salt and sugar as cheap flavor enhancers. Add processed meats like sausage or meatballs and sodium climbs even higher. Eating these meals regularly makes it much harder to control blood pressure or maintain a balanced diet over weeks and months. Protein and vegetables are another weakness. Labels may list vague terms like meat product instead of actual lean protein, and vegetables, if they appear at all, are often tiny in number and overcooked until their nutrition fades. Even reheating is a problem. Thick sauce layers trap heat unevenly, leaving the center cooler while the edges overcook. The texture suffers, the flavor dulls, and the meal fails to satisfy. When a dish leaves you unsatisfied, you are more likely to snack later, undoing any calorie control you were aiming for. Better options exist. Whole grain or legume-based frozen pastas with shorter ingredient lists are a smarter choice. Or prepare a batch of whole wheat pasta with homemade tomato sauce, freeze in single portions, and add real vegetables with lean protein. That way you decide the sodium, the fiber, and the calories, finally taking the number 1 spot as the worst frozen TV dinners. These meals are marketed as balanced and nostalgic, promising protein, starch, and vegetables neatly divided into trays. The truth is far from balanced. What you get is ultra-processed convenience built for storage and reheating, not for health. Each compartment of a TV dinner is engineered to survive months in the freezer, relying on preservatives, emulsifiers, and sodium to keep color and texture intact, while masking the use of low-quality ingredients. Frozen TV dinners may look like a complete meal, but in reality they are an illusion. The protein is often mystery meat. The vegetables are bland and stripped of nutrients, and the starches are padded with additives. What was once advertised as an easy family staple is now one of the clearest examples of ultra-processing. Convenience comes at the cost of sodium overload, chemical additives, and nutrition that does not measure up. A meal designed to look balanced on a tray is at its core engineered filler dressed up as dinner. The biggest red flag with frozen TV dinners is the mystery meat. Many packages do not list clear cuts of chicken, beef, or turkey. Instead, you see words like meat product or mechanically separated meat. These are processed proteins built with binders, fillers, and artificial flavor systems that mimic the taste of real meat while reducing actual protein value. Hidden inside are sodium and phosphate additives designed to hold water and preserve texture. For older adults or anyone who needs reliable nutrition, that lack of clarity is a serious drawback. To make up for lost freshness, manufacturers load TV dinners with sodium flavor enhancers and preservatives. They are engineered to taste strong straight out of the oven, but the cost is steep. High salt intake affects blood pressure, fluid balance, and increases long-term dietary strain. Eat these meals often enough and your daily sodium creeps far beyond recommended levels. The appearance of balance is misleading. Divided trays make the meal look like it covers every food group, but the quality and portions rarely match the promise. Vegetables are usually tiny in amount, overcooked to survive storage, and stripped of fresh fiber. Starches come from refined grains, and protein sources are heavily processed. The tray might satisfy hunger in the moment, but nutritionally it offers very little. Processing itself adds another concern. Repeated industrial heating and long storage degrade fats and form byproducts that taste off and may affect long-term health. An occasional TV dinner is not catastrophic. The danger lies in making them a regular habit. If you must rely on one, in a pinch, read labels closely. Choose options with named cuts of meat, lower sodium, and real vegetable content. A smarter alternative is preparing simple frozen meals at home. Roast a batch of chicken breast, steam plain vegetables, bake potatoes, and freeze them in portions. When you reheat later, you know exactly what is on your plate. Convenience does not have to mean compromised health. Now it is time to shift toward the freezer aisle's true hidden hero: frozen vegetables. Unlike TV dinners, these actually preserve nutrition. Vegetables begin losing vitamins as soon as they are harvested. Flash freezing locks them at peak ripeness, preserving vitamin C, minerals, and fiber. In fact, frozen spinach, peas, or broccoli often contain more nutrients than fresh produce that has spent 5 days on a truck. For older adults who need nutrient-dense, easy-to-chew foods, this makes a major difference. Frozen spinach softens into an easy texture while still delivering iron and folate. Steamed broccoli holds its bite but is tender enough for easier swallowing. Frozen vegetables also offer safety benefits. Most are blanched before freezing, a quick step of boiling or steaming that reduces surface microbes and deactivates enzymes. This makes frozen vegetables less likely to harbor harmful bacteria than fresh greens that may have been exposed to warm storage during transport. They also reduce waste. You can steam exactly the portion you need without worrying about spoilage in the fridge. The key is choosing the right kind. Not all frozen vegetables are created equal. Avoid packages with added sauces, butter, or seasoning blends, as these turn a clean vegetable into a hidden source of sodium and calories. The best choice is a bag with only one ingredient listed: the vegetable itself. Brands that state flash frozen or frozen at peak ripeness are usually more reliable. Frozen vegetables are versatile in the kitchen. Add them to omelets, soups, or stews for an easy nutrient boost. Mix broccoli or peas into whole grain pasta with olive oil and garlic for a quick, balanced plate. With minimal effort, frozen vegetables deliver freshness, safety, and nutrition that rival or even surpass what you pull off the produce shelf. For older adults who need to keep sodium intake under control, frozen vegetables are a simple and safe solution. They allow you to build balanced meals without depending on canned soups or packaged side dishes that often come loaded with salt. A bag of plain frozen peas, spinach, or mixed vegetables often outperforms a so-called fresh option that has been sitting on a truck for a week before reaching your plate. Frozen vegetables should not be treated as a backup plan, but as a foundation for healthy eating, a reliable way to bring real nutrition into everyday meals. The second freezer aisle choice worth keeping is frozen berries. These little fruits are nutritional powerhouses rich in antioxidants and vitamins that support long-term health. Blueberries, raspberries, strawberries, and blackberries deliver compounds like anthocyanins and vitamin C, both of which protect cells and strengthen the immune system. When berries are picked at their peak ripeness and frozen quickly, they retain most of these valuable nutrients. For people who struggle to keep fresh fruit from spoiling before it is eaten, frozen berries are a convenient, affordable, and highly effective alternative. Frozen berries also shine in versatility. A handful stirred into oatmeal adds natural sweetness and color. Mixed into yogurt or blended into a smoothie with a banana and a splash of milk, they create a nutrient-dense breakfast that is easy to digest. For anyone with dental or swallowing difficulties, heating frozen berries into a compote softens the flesh while keeping antioxidants intact. This makes them accessible while still providing the health benefits of fresh fruit. Safety is another reason frozen berries are a smart buy. Most trusted brands freeze fruit soon after harvest, which limits spoilage and locks in vitamins. Still, it is important to check labels carefully. Choose brands that clearly list the country of origin and provide straightforward handling information. If a member of your household has a fragile immune system, it may be wise to briefly cook the berries before serving. For most people, however, thawing them in the refrigerator and eating right away is perfectly safe. Label reading is key when choosing frozen fruit. Skip any bag that lists added sugar or syrup. Sweetened options pile on empty calories and weaken the natural nutritional advantage. Plain fruit is what you want. Organic options may reduce pesticide exposure, but they are not strictly necessary to gain the antioxidant benefits. Look instead for vacuum-sealed or quick freeze claims which indicate that the fruit was handled properly to protect its value. Frozen berries can become a staple ingredient in countless recipes. Beyond smoothies and compotes, they can be used to top pancakes stirred into whole grain muffins or simmered into a sauce for lean meats. Few frozen foods offer as much confidence as a bag of plain frozen fruit. They bring flavor, nutrition, and convenience together in one package. In the freezer aisle, not every product is created equal. Some choices like TV dinners or fried meals trade health for convenience, but frozen vegetables and frozen berries are exceptions. They give you tools to build meals that are safe, nutritious, and easy to prepare. With smart choices, the freezer can serve as an ally rather than a trap. One wrong pick can add stress to your health, but the right ones can make eating well simpler than ever.